Hello everyone. Welcome to everyone to the channel Upskill with Abhishek. All those who are listening us in the podcast or watching us in the YouTube, welcome to all of you. We have a wonderful new guest today, Vipul Damhane. He is an amazing, experienced campaigner and a professional from the world of anti-money laundering and financial services. And to talk about Vipul, first of all, Vipul, welcome to you. Welcome to the show and taking us
Thanks,
time from
Abhishek. All my pleasure.
yeah. So if I tell about Vipul quickly, he's currently he's a founder of Actstat, which is of course business and consulting firm. He is a leader in the anti-money laundering and counter financing of terrorism. Uh, and he was previously working with Diplomacy Direct, and so much of amazing work Vipul has done in the field of financial crime. So I think today's conversation would be thought-provoking, intriguing to know from Vipul what's happening. Welcome once again, Vipul.
Thanks, Abhishek. Again, the pleasure is all mine.
Vipul, coming to the first question, and of course, since
Mhm,
the objective of upskilling the world is to give back what the tons of knowledge we have or you have in the
mhm,
field of anti-money laundering, can you
mhm.
briefly tell everyone and explain them that how after 9/11 and of course 26/11, which we had to face the brunt, how the shift has happened in the financial crime, especially how anti-money laundering and counter financing of terrorism has taken so much of center stage from all the regulators across the globe. Your thoughts?
Okay, so Abhishek, this is a superb question. I have very recently published a paper on the same topic uh, for the 9/11 and the post 9/11 uh, financing of terrorism and how all it happened and how did the attackers, the terrorists, get their hands on the funds, and similarly, in the 26/11 scenario. Uh, but both of these operations, from a financing of terrorism point of view, are completely different. In 9/11, it was a terrorist organization, um, that funded the operation, and with 26/11, though Al Qaeda for 9/11 is the is the organization, and Jaish e Mohammed for the 26/11. But again, we all know the ISI was behind it, and so that goes a bit into the realm of state-sponsored terrorism. 9/11, again, I went through all the 9/11 committee reports, the CIA fact files, so on and so forth, and which again, my paper brings out. And uh, there, back then, there were a lot of lacunas, there were a lot of system labs, there were a lot of lacks in the reporting systems, which after 9/11, um, you know the uh, FinCEN has, the Patriot Act, then uh, we are the Office of Foreign Asset Control, and everything has been tightened from the US perspective. And by and large, uh, all these functionality slash parameters of governance and framework guiding the financial system into the regulatory compliance, governing the in and out of, in and out flowing of cash out of the country, the jurisdiction and all. So FATF has also, or rather, FATF has adopted a lot of these things. That FATF has, you know, suggested or recommended these guidelines to the entire world. We look at, the recommendations. We look at, and then the methodic movement of how FATF has gone ahead, and since 9/11, how things are happening. So basically, uh, now things are pretty methodic. Again, there will be workarounds, there will be system lapses in the finance technology point of view, and the terrorists will take advantage of it. But now things are, way well structured. Things are, better laid out in terms of making uh, the financial um, machinery well oiled in terms of combating financing of terrorism. And as our conversation today goes ahead, we'll cover all these things. So that's that.
I think to tell the viewers, Vipul has published the recent academic paper in the Defense Horizon Journal of Antarctica, wherein he talks about the philosophy of
Austria.
Austria, beg your pardon, philosophy of cyber warfare, and that goes to my next question, Vipul. What is there in the mind of a terrorist? You know, what is goes behind the mind of a terrorist? What kind of fault line they pick up? How they try to use certain concepts which may be coming from their teachings or their understanding, and they try to try to create terror in the mind of people across the globe. So what goes behind the mind of a terrorist, and how is that philosophy being sort of countered?
Okay. Okay, so I for the starters, a little bit of correction there. So there are two papers. One is pertaining to the 9/11 financing report and the 9/11 financing methodology of how Al Qaeda. So that is another paper, and the other paper that we are talking about is again philosophy of cyber warfare, which again is which throws light on a lot of non-kinetic warfare, which we can safely or unsafely, in a way, presume that can be used by not only the nations or the state actors but the non-state actors. And again, getting in hands of terrorists can bring, or have wreak a havoc on the economic system, or the financial, the human life, and the disruption of safe working of our democratic system. But keeping that aside, coming to your question again, is what goes on in a mind of a terrorist. So basically, Abhishek, this is what the entire world is thinking about since a long time. We see instances of terrorism since the time, or maybe even before the times of Russian SARS getting outpowered by the terrorist organizations like Narodne Volya. And from there it comes to, or even before that, we look at the Turks ousting the Byzantine Empire, and then cut to today's age. So though the socio cultural scenario has changed, the ideology or the human mindset of a power play utilizing human thoughts or human emotions um, for self agendas, uh, again, economics, capitalist mentalities, uh, uh, you know proliferation of religious ideas. Again, no religion teaches violence, but then again, there is proliferation of wrong ideas being fed to the youth. And so there is no one answer to the question what goes on in the terrorist's mind. There is a lot of literature that has gone. Some say, now there is a very cliched statement in it where it's written that someone's terrorist is others martyr. And today we see how the Hamas Israel story is unfolding. And again, there are two sides to the coin. Again, the party that has instigated the current events and the incidents that pushed the current scenario in motion was not a pleasant one, and whatever is going on right now isn't a pleasant scenario, especially talking from human rights perspective. But from a humanity and a peacekeeping perspective, what needs to be done is being done. Israel had to fight back against Hamas terrorists, and again. So again, there are two sides. Who is right, who is wrong? That may never occur, but somebody who, again, we look at uh, youth. It's not only the disenfranchised youth, but also youth coming from good families, those who are brainwashed into uh, into Fidayeen thoughts or into jihadist thoughts. And we have a very good example of a bright youth from JNU, Buranwani, and that turned out to be, in lack of good words, such a mess. That talent going waste. Had it been on the national development front, and it would have been such a good example. But then that is how it is. So again, what goes on in a terrorist's mind is something that literatures would be written on that, and again we will fall
And you
short.
rightly
So
you rightly said, Vipul, there are many multi-dimensional aspects which come out, and we've been watching, of course, a lot of wars happening across the globe. Uh, India, Bharat is sort of always been a peace ambassador to the world. We've been taking a
mhm.
lot of initiatives for creating global peace, and you yourself, in the Diplomacy Direct, have been working on the global peace front, Vipul. Um, uh,
Yep.
what is your view, Vipul, in terms of how India can further play larger role as a Vishwa Guru or somebody who give a right direction, and so much so because we have followed the path of non-violence for our own liberty from the Brits. So what do you sort of think that how we gone about uh, in sort of giving right direction to follow the peace, the process of peace, not the violence?
Okay, so Indian independence actually came into existence out of two thought processes, right? So one was a revolutionary thought process. Our Chafekar brothers, our Vasudev Balwan Phadke, our you know uh, uh, the Azad Hind Fauj, or Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev, and Rajguru, or our Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. So all these revolutionaries, who were in favor of a fair or a fierce fight. And it's not that we wouldn't have taken up arms. And and we made our violent side also show that, okay, we are not going down without a fight, or we are very much capable of putting up a fight. You name any Indian god, and though Hinduism is all about peace, and like you said, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and this ideology, in religious scriptures, or in cultural, or any other ancient scriptures, you won't have this ideology ever heard or seen, which the Indian ideology or the Hindu ideology, the Sanatan Dharma ideology of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam uh, you know uh, is promoted. But then, on the other hand, yes, there were strategies, tactics, and instruments like nonviolence by Mahatma Gandhi and the followership that also brought in some kind of So the balance of both of it, right?
Mhm.
uh, it was actually the best way, or maybe as early as 1947 that things happened. But Subhash Chandra Bose was already with Azad Hind Fauj, with the training camps happening out of the then Japanese occupied Shanghai, and there was a lot of you know collaboration happening with the Germans and so on and so forth, right? Uh, India in today's scenario, yes, we are a force to reckon with in terms of we can dictate our ideologies in the global scenario. We can dictate, or we are leading by example, right? We are a thriving democracy. We are a growing, uproaring democracy. We are, you know, and again about setting an example. Again, we started this conversation by talking about terrorism financing, and after 9/11 and 26/11, the way we tackled post 26/11, the way we have brought in our or even 9/11 for that matters, the way we have brought our financial system and everything. And then we know, very recently we got assessed and evaluated on our financial system against terrorism financing and the regulatory adherence related to that. And that happened with the current FATF plenary. So these are the examples, from the past, the mid ages, present, and we are leading the way in future. The current government is poised to put India on, a structural map where we are making example. And right now the way things are is the best way to go in terms of governance, regulatory control, and overall transparency, that people are seeing about the progress, not only from infrastructure and political perspective, but also from the internal stoppage. We have not seen, so there have been incidences like Udi and Pulwama, but the way we retaliated, the way, the example was set that, okay, we can, do anything else than आज प्रधानमंत्री ने इस वाक्य की कड़े शब्दों में निंदा की है. Previously we used to just hear that and then nothing beyond that. So today we are taking military action. We are going beyond the borders to set examples, and that is the way the governance should be. So yes, there is a new India that is emerging. There is a new way we are governing things, and world is observing and even taking lessons from us. Back to
No,
you.
absolutely, absolutely. And the way you rightly said about the Vedas and our ancient system, शस्त्र और शास्त्र दोनों की विद्या काम आती है. ऑफ
Yes,
कोर्स शास्त्र से हम गवर्नेंस करेंगे, पर शस्त्र से हम अपना सेल्फ डिफेंस करेंगे. वी विल सेल्फ डिफेंस
absolutely.
आवरसेल्फ. टेरिटोरियल इंटीग्रिटी, बिकॉज वी इन इंडिया, भारत में हम भारत माता बोलते हैं. वी टेल इट्स मदरलैंड, and we revered her as a mother divine,
Mhm.
which is the place to live, and also gave us the understanding to create love and peace affection across the globe. So we need to save ourselves from any negative external advances done on us. So I totally agree with you. Vipul,
Mhm.
you talked about FATF. Why don't you share your latest positions and updates on the plenary we just had, and how India see this, especially when we compare the last one in June 2010. What has all gone changed, and looking into the geopolitical scenario by FATF, how do you see where we stand, and what measures which India should keep taking on to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to financial crime risk posed on us?
Okay. So again, that's a very very exciting uh, thing happening right now. That the FATF plenary uh, just did their assessment in India, And for the uninitiated, I would just like to give some, background that, you know, very recently a team of FATF, that is your Financial Action Task Force, visited India to evaluate the AML CFT, that is your anti-money laundering and combating financing of terrorism laws, the regulatory control and the industry adherence in our country, right? They generally visit every country and evaluate the progress of actions laid down in the guidelines in form of 40 recommendations that help the countries, or the states, provide a comprehensive framework to for the nations to observe, uh, with measures to help them tackle illicit financial flow in their economy, right? And the plenary is actually the decision making body of FATF. Uh, some of them are from the APG FSRB. So basically, APG is your Asia Pacific Group, and the FSRB stands for FATF style regional body. So APG uh, is the FSRB that India is part of. And the team visiting has been constituted with the members from Brazil, South Africa, UK, France, Malaysia, Russia, and they must have met representatives from RBI, the Enforcement Directorate, and the Revenue and Finance Departments of Government of India. And they would have, they would have checked whether our financial systems are uh, robust and up to the mark to counter financing of terrorism, or the controlling methods for systems in place for global transparency, right? Regional and international cooperation for that matters, right? And the basic checklist and the operational parameters, what the plenary, or the committee would check, is actually laid down under the 40 recommendations that we all know. So like the country system assessing risks, and applying the RBA, that is the risk-based approach, then the money laundering offenses and the predicate crimes that come under it, uh, or are covered under it, the judicial system that supports these offenses to be brought to justice, or the confiscation and provisional measures. Then we are talking about the preventive measures like financial institutions, secrecy laws, or the customer due diligence, along with your KYC and all these norms. Then your reporting of suspicious transactions, record keeping, beneficial ownership laws, and all of that, right? Then there are recommendations that cover powers and responsibilities of competent authorities and their institutional measures. We also look at functioning of financial intelligence unit that being assessed by the plenary. And then also, along with money laundering, then there are 9 special recommendations for countering financing of terrorism, financing for weapons proliferation. That includes implementation of UN instruments, criminalizing the financing of terrorism, freezing and confiscating the terrorist assets, international cooperation. Again, there is an MLAT process where all the FIUs share all the information and all of that, right? And alternate remittances, new technology, so on and so forth, right? Now, talking about uh, the differences that we had in June 2010 and now in November 2023, the world has changed, right?
Absolutely.
So basically, uh, in that duration, uh, uh, between these two plenaries, lot so lot has happened on the technology growth front, that governs the global financial system. There are new remittance systems, there are e-wallets, there are new virtual currencies, online payment portals, global e-commerce portals, international credit cards, cryptocurrency, so on and so forth, right? And which is a new widely accepted financial environment spectrum compared to what we had in 2010, right? Checks and money orders, or the core banking had just come into picture, right? So I'm sure this is a global scenario, and FATF must have surely upgraded their examining and interviewing methods and pertaining templates, along with their assessing, the global systems as they go. But what stands out with India is that India has seen tremendous commercial and technological growth with much greater uh, population now, and socio-cultural issues, including usage of technology in crime and usage of technology in criminal investigation methods also, and the quantum at which the nations operate, and must have been all of this must have been really especially overwhelming for the plenary members. And uh, and that's that, right? So and in India, we actually by and large believe that our system, there are a lot of frauds happening, online frauds are rampant and everything, but when we look at the quantum of the financial mechanism, and the the quantum of frauds that are happening, or we can say that by and large we are secured, and that we should not be worried about us having or not having a strong mechanism or not, right? Everybody has an online wallet today, right? And there can be rampant frauds, but again, that has also been kept under control. The percentage of frauds that we are seeing are much under control. The terrorism financing that could have happened without a proper regulatory governance, that seems to be under control, and the finance ministry has done a proper study of the systems worldwide, and we have adopted the best mechanisms and the best practices that we have, that have been incorporated in the framework, that in Indian framework. uh, then talking, so basically we also have been um, very successful in shutting down a parallel economy that used to fund terrorism. So example, the demonetization, that had a
Yes.
definite
A lot of black
impact
money,
on terrorism.
a lot of fake currency, black money must have been flushed out, and the parallel
Absolutely.
across the border were
Right.
running.
And then yes, yes. And so that showed very much, as an upfront, or a statistical uh, observation that has brought down terrorism events in the nation drastically, right?
Yeah.
Um Also, the so whatever uh, Lashkar-e-Taiba or this
Jaish e
so
Mohammed.
previously, the yeah, Jaish Muhammad, Harkatul Ansar, Jamaatul Dawa, Hizbul Mujahideen, you name it, and everybody was having a party, because illicit funds were flowing, right?
Yeah.
Now we could actually backtrack LET or JEM to ISI funding, right?
Hmm.
Because the funds are not readily available inside Indian in jurisdiction now, right?
Absolutely.
And there are amends made in PMLA, making the act more stringent, giving more power to law enforcement, judicial system for monitoring seizures, freezers, confiscations, uh, uh, convictions, right? So I think we are confident that we will get a good thumbs up and a green signal from FATF in this plenary. And I think uh, the government has, you know, done a fantastic job, that, uh, common citizens like you and me are, safe with our money and safe with our surroundings, uh, in terms of money laundering, frauds, and also from terrorism perspective.
Absolutely. I think this is very insightful, Vipul, to know that this plenary, of course, and this sea of change, the new products coming in, new risks coming in, the entire geopolitical system, the political system, the governance system has gone change. And with this, of course, changes, we will see different observation, and of course, we are in the right hands. So, Vipul, of course, we are short of time, but we have a good session we generally cover. This is a book by Gurudev Shri Ravi Shankar ji, a book on leadership, and you are leader in the field of anti-money and financial crime. And please tell me any one number from page number 1 to 75. We will take your number and see what message we have as a leader for us.
So, you know what, Abhishek, matter of fact, before doing that, I remember, or rather, because you were so, in our conversation, I found that you were so fond of Shri Ravi Shankar ji. So I just, I want to link one of his thoughts to the current scenario is that he has said that if others consider us an enemy, then it's their doing, right? So I'm paraphrasing, right? So how does that apply here is that Pakistan is trying to lobby against India with FATF, right? And Pakistan was trying to bring some unrelated issues to try and put our nation into a bad light, and perhaps somewhere, to get a payback for a number of years that they've been on the FATF grey list. And Pakistan is actually doing a hectic lobbying with FATF investigators to try and put Bharat under a certain
For me,
scanner,
Pakistan
right?
is a
On
woke state. Pakistan is,
various.
in fact, they have no locus standi to communicate anything in terms of humanity. So I don't even like to talk sometimes about Pakistan because they don't stand in terms of what we do as Bharati, as Indians. So of course
Yes.
they will.
So very recently, Pakistan has been, so BBC says that, with whatever their financial collapse and everything, BBC says that they have proliferated $364 million worth of weapons, which Economic Times goes as high as 900 million, right? And that is very much against weapons proliferation guidelines that again FATF. So I actually don't understand how FATF has brought Pakistan out of the grey list, right? And after these things, why is it not putting Pakistan back? See, Turkey was on grey list. Turkey took steps. Turkey was on playlist on grey list because it was an open ground for financing ISIS, right? And then those measures were taken. Turkey now has become and it went down financially, and they got their lessons. Erdogan took immediate action against closing those lacunas in the financial system, right? But talking about Pakistan, this is very much happening due to their unstable political scene, the army ruling the country in the interim. The current prime minister is also an acting prime minister, so there is um, the political parties are scattered. The corruption, the history, the army siphoning the funds, so on and so forth, and everything.
I think that's a very, very tricky geopolitical situation where you have a very nasty neighbor. You have good relation with Sri Lanka, you have good relation with Nepal, you have good relationship with Bangladesh, you have good relation with Bhutan. You want to make them prosper. We build out Sri Lanka in their tough times, and of course we want to have good relationship with our neighbors. So Vipul, out of from 1 to 75, which number is your favorite? We'll pull out one beautiful quote from this book, Leadership by Gurudev. One number.
Let's go for page number 9.
Page number 9. Okay, so let me go to page number 9 and see what is the message for all of us as leaders. Well, this book is on the leadership. So the message is one who has a sense of belonging with everyone makes a better leader than someone who thinks he is different and better. So I think I'll again repeat and we go back to our conversation. One who has a sense of belonging with everyone makes a better leader than someone who thinks he is different and better. So goes to prove that point, that when India takes along everybody together and becomes the voice of global South, India is seen as Vishwaguru. At the same time, if any other nation who wants to be nasty and use state-sponsored terrorism to justify their existence, who's going to give heed to them? Nobody wants to talk to somebody who creates violence and negativity. So that's why this sort of goes and proof to our conversation we just having. And this is
Yes.
an apt message which came up, your favorite number 9, and we just apt message came. What do you say? What do you say about this in
No,
the
no,
context?
absolutely, absolutely, Abhishek. So, we are talking. So, let's take two scenarios over here, right? In this statement, it said that one who wants to take everybody together, right, is a better leader. So, talk about India, right? India, while the COVID times, we now there is this term that we call as vaccine diplomacy. But hey, forget about diplomacy. Think about how many lives those vaccines saved. In what parts of world, you know, did the developing countries received India's vaccination, right?
Mhm.
The developed world also had the same. So basically we treated everybody equal. We extended our helping hand. So that was in times of COVID. Again, India helps being a part of APG, being a part of Eurasia Group. There are many countries that India tends to help in terms of bringing the financial system in place. Many of these countries have problems, have issues with terrorism, and India would, help them. India helps them replicate the success that we have had internally. India is a part of BIMSTEC. Now, BIMSTEC nations, or India is a part of SARC. Um, in both the multilateral treaties, India has demonstrated its leadership in terms of governance and leadership by example. We have conducted so many counterterrorism exercises in India uh, uh, for the BIMSTEC nations, right? So India is doing a lot. Prime Minister Modi has, in the General Assembly, in a few years back, had brought up this thing about the definition of terrorism. Very recently, when we had G20 summit that we were president for, we brought that topic once again. All right. So this is what India is doing. On the other side, somebody thinking themselves as better, right? Now we can talk about China, right? So China trying to beat the US hegemony in the geopolitical sense. China trying to, be the big brother in the area, right, in Asia. And all the smaller countries look towards India, right? China has been creating mischief on the Arunachal Pradesh border. China has been trying to create mischief in the Tibetan border. China has been, on the trade front, China is trying to, have the yuan getting established as the currency of the region. China has been, um, you know, playing its tricks from the military perspective in the South China Sea, and having nuclear capabilities in the region for patrolling and everything. So, so we have these two examples right in front of us now. Who's who is for the world to decide, and there is a clear definition, or a clear example to these two nation states. So I guess the proverb from page number 9 holds true, holds ground for these two examples that I just gave. So how
Absolutely.
about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because because these are real life situation, and
Mhm.
how we can relate these real life situation is going to, of course, give us a lot of learnings. Vipul, your thoughts. Reserve Bank of India has, we have, of course, a strong anti-money laundering compliance structure wherein, based on the FATF recommendations, we have Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002, which has been amended multiple times in couple of years. RBI has got a lot of teeth in terms of on regulating cooperative banks, supervising cooperative banks. They have also can issue regulation for national housing banks now based on the 2020 amendment. Now, what my question boils down to is to the fact that KYC Master Direction of RBI is
Mhm.
very uh, have structurally grown over a period of time because of
Mhm.
digital KYC, because of video-based KYC process, because of how Aadhaar evolved in completing the KYC, how DigiLocker bring into the picture. And we saw a lot of penalties being levied on many banks and not many fintechs. I don't know to call out the names of them, but of course, a lot of financial, penal, supervisory action by RBI on KYC master direction non-compliance. Your thoughts
Mhm.
and how where things are going wrong, and how of course you've been working with many of them, how they need to shape up when it comes to doing compliances to KYC from the PMLA and RBA perspective.
So, Abhishek, very opportune question here. See, everything starts with, see, like I said, we have the best practices put in place. PMLA is our national act, but uh, UAPA was already there in place, to which PMLA took over in the terms of financial this thing. Uh, Frauds used to be there, again, putting from a financial wrongdoing perspective, financial crime perspective. Uh, any bank, any financial institution has to go by the books when it comes to something, the circulars that RBI keeps on putting in from time to time, or from the sanctions perspective, or the SDN perspective. RBI is something which is at the crux of the whole thing. So the risk-based approach is something that all the banks, that becomes the basis of the entire regulatory structure. And then looking into beneficial ownership, or looking into regulatory reportings, looking into, or rather the suspicious transaction reportings, right? So these are the basics. If the system follows even the basics, and what I have found out is generally the basics are yet not known, right?
Mhm.
The regulatory structure is very vast, and the MLROs get confused. The MLROs, the designated director, the principal. So uh, basically, the organization has to be structured in the way the regulatory guidelines are, uh, the way the internal governance should be, and then backward integrate into the security framework, the risk control unit, the RCUs of the banks. Or if you want to decouple and have a four-eyed maker checker kind of a scenario internally, if you want to make the things more robust in the internal system, you can make that. But basics, if the financial institutions follow the basics, right, and then integrate technologies to it, again from the basic perspective, then integrate transaction monitoring, then integrate sanction screening, then integrate. So what I would say is everybody's got to look from a basic point of view. Cooperative banks are facing this problem in a very real sense, right? So again, word to all the cooperative banks, word to all the and then private banking. One more thing, private banking with the bigger banks have to come under a certain check internally, because asset under management is something that kind of blurs the entire risk-based approach that a bank has to govern its regulatory compliance with. So if all these things are taken into consideration, and kept under a proper check, the compliance team is well trained. The compliance team, follows the book to the T, and there is an internal referral template. There is an internal vigilance system in bigger banks and everything. I think this is the least. And then again, cooperation to the law enforcement, cooperation to ED, cooperation to the regulatory authorities is something, if the system adheres to, I think the governance would be far more robust.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think these are very, very insightful thoughts, especially on the governance side, which you touched upon. Because unless you have a strong governance mechanism, unless you have a right policy framework, unless you have right experts, and you talked about the money laundering reporting officer, the MLRO. Of course, he goes as a principal officer, and the director who sits on the board, they have to sort of set the tone at the top for the PMLA compliances. I think it is very, very fruitful conversation, Vipul. I have one last question with you to ask you, because you have been working with in the field of AML for long. Your quick piece of advice for the AML professionals, and how and what are the basic things they should keep in mind when they are building compliance programs or AML programs for their organization?
Again, the same thing what I covered in my last answer, Abhishek, is that get your basics right. Get the multinational treaties or multilateral treaties right. Get your internal acts right. Get the provisions in the internal, the PMLA, the UAPA, everything that governs around the financial system right. Understand what law requires, what law governs, or what law dictates for a proper governance, right? What the law requires in terms of reporting, record keeping, the KYC, right? The CDD, the EDD process, the entire risk-based approach. Once all these basics are understood, and then you take it from there, the new the professional, those who are into anti-money laundering and CFT domain right now, may it be the analyst, may it be from the compliance monitoring, may it be from the transaction monitoring, may it be from the sanction screening, everything boils down to all these basic points. So again, the bottom line, the underlying concept here is understanding and sticking to the basics and building up from there.
Yeah, yeah. No, in fact, very, very nicely put. And the message to all the AML professionals, CFT professionals who are playing the role of MLRO or who are principal officers, is to fact that know what is the basic, know the basic rules of the regulatory framework, and start building from there. And of course, India is nicely poised, and we see India soon becoming $5 trillion economy. A lot of financial products will come up. We are growing rapidly, and with this growth, of course, there will be a lot of financial crime which we need to cater to, and that's why the ML professionals are going to play a very important role. Of course, the professionals like Vipul, who guide this industry, are going to help us. Thank you so much, Vipul, for taking us time. Have such a nice conversation. Especially, we look forward how final FATF plenary report comes up, and what kind of feedback comes to us. Of course, your feedback is that we are going good. So we look forward to that report and engage.
I'm always bullish on India, Abhishek. I'm always bullish.
We all are bullish. We are, of course, Bharatiya. We belong to this soil, and we need to make our nation proud by doing our best efforts and guiding the right to the world. Thank you so much, Vipul. Take care.
Thanks, Abhishek. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thanks.